What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of AGR's. Oh, okay, I can't. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat this. Holy shit, orange is the new black went full out Oz this season. Alright guys, I'm right here with you. This was a pretty traumatic season, but I promise you we'll get through this review. Now first of all, I'm gonna let you know right now that there are gonna be no spoilers in this review. I'm gonna keep it as vague as possible because this is a pretty heavy season and I don't want to ruin it for anybody. I don't want to get shanked in the shower by one of the fans. Now, as you know, Season 5 ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, actually a pretty huge one, and we weren't actually sure what was going to happen to our favorite characters. But the ramifications of what happened last season are definitely spoiling over to this season, and if I really had to categorize the theme of this season, it's the relative harmony that the girls had experienced previously has been completely obliterated. There is a lot of secrets and a lot of backstabbing that goes on this time around. Now this is not really a spoiler, it's more logical, and logic would naturally dictate that after the events of Season 5, the girls would be sent to a maximum security prison. And as a result, many of the characters that we loved had been sent to other maximum security prisons. Now this is the one criticism I have for this season, because the ensemble cast was really the strength of the show. Sadly, and what was a real bummer for me, is that some of my most favorite characters don't make a return this season. And of course they conveniently explain it by having been separated to other maximum security prisons. And it sucks because they only give a glimpse or a little hint at their fate. Some are not even mentioned at all, and I'm hoping that Season 7 will bring them back. And this really sucks because this is what I like to refer to as a Transformers the movie effect. No, not the Michael Bay films, I wouldn't mind if those characters died off. I'm referring to the 1986 animated Transformers movie, where essentially what they did is they started killing off all of the Season 1 and Season 2 generation characters in order to introduce new characters. It sucked, and it was just as traumatic for us kids when we saw it. Now of course we can always have a debate on whether or not creatively the ends justify the means, but given the events of last season, I think this was a natural progression, and in many ways this was bound to happen sooner or later. But there is some hope, guys, because the new characters that they introduced are so interesting and really set a tone for this season. Man, do they set the tone. I will highlight one character that instantly became my favorite. That's the character of Daddy. Her backstory is absolutely fascinating and one of the coolest I've ever seen. And backstories in general have been ramped up, so to speak. They go from like really cool to really deplorable this season. And speaking of backstories, for the characters that we already know and love, I didn't think this was possible, but they go even deeper into their origins. We also see some more backstory of some beloved characters, and my particular favorite was definitely Nichols. Now, one of the reasons that I thought it was so fascinating is because after all these years, we finally see why she is the way that she is, and really, her whole reason for being, or the reason that she is really a defense mechanism. And let me tell you, they really fleshed her character out this season. But guys, easily the standout this season was definitely Tasty. Her origin story was especially heartfelt and in many ways was so tragic and so heartbreaking. Guys, bring a box of tissues. This is really gonna mess you up. She is so talented, and let me tell you guys, she really carries the show this season. Absolutely. The other standouts, of course, is the interplay and the interaction with Daya and Alita this season. And I'm not even going to talk about this because I feel like it's a major spoiler, but just know, guys, this is probably one of the most interesting aspects of this season. You know, I've always been fascinated by Caputo, and I thought that he was kind of a cliched character at first. Fortunately, the writing has improved as it relates to his character and his overall love life. I love this season because I like where Caputo went. I think he has had the most character arc of all of the characters, and I know that's not saying that much, but Caputo really has become more fleshed out, and I appreciate them for doing that. Now, I do have another criticism this season, and I have to be honest in the review. There's a substantial flashback for two main characters this season, and it was done very sloppy. In fact, I thought they were introducing new characters in our own timeline, not realizing that this was something that happened in the past. They didn't really indicate time and place when they initially introduced these characters. And here's the other thing that compounded the problem. There was a substantial amount of time before we even revisited these characters. What was very obvious to me anyway, was the fact that the writers realized that they maybe had fumbled the introduction to these characters, and mid-season you kind of see that some rewrites had to have been made in order to clarify what universe they existed and what time they existed in. Now, I'm speculating here, but it also seems like the main conflict this season wasn't the original vision, and they had to do some rewrites in order to make it work. If you're really paying attention to the flow this season, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Now the guards this time around are really suffering from their own traumatic shit, and I'm glad that we see the perspective from the guards. You have to remember, although these girls are incarcerated, the guards are in there with them, and sometimes there's a little bit of transference, as we obviously saw in Season 5. Now, we all know the douchebaggery that has gone on with the guards in previous seasons, and this season is no different, and in many ways I think it's actually worse. You'll never look at fantasy football the same way again. Now, as I told you before, Orange is the New Black went completely dark this season, and while there was a glimmer of hope before for some of the girls and what life would be like on the outside, we are starting to see these characters transition into what is commonly known as institutionalization. This season also really tackles the abuse of drugs and its prevalence in the prison system as well, and it's done so in a way that it hasn't really done so in the past. Obviously, this is an allegory for what's going on in the United States and the current state of the opioid crisis. Orange is the New Black has never been one to shy away from topical issues, and you have to remember this is a post-Trump world, and they're certainly letting their feelings be known. Because of the brilliance of the writing though, it's not too preachy, and everything is done in a very classy way, and it is hilarious. I also thought it was pretty funny that they went out of their way to take a swipe at those multi-level marketing schemes, so props for them for doing that and highlighting that bullshit. I also really like the fact that they kind of raise awareness for the overall flaw in the prison system in general, and it often leads to greater criminalization, and rehabilitation is really just an afterthought. And finally, one of the things that I'm really appreciative of and really proud that the writers took on this season is the big topic and the one thing that has Americans divided, and that's the monetization and the criminalization of our immigration system. Guys, it's pretty clear that Orange is the New Black is expanding and it's really wanting to tackle darker and more serious themes. Now, it already did so, but I think it's taking it to the next level. It's a natural progression for the show, and I really like where they're going, even if it is gut-wrenching sometimes. And believe me, guys, this season will really mess you up. But you still gotta love this show. I know there's a lot of fans for the show and they really love it, so I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you liked this season, what you didn't like, some of the things that really broke your heart, but just put a little spoiler warning when you make a comment so you don't ruin it for the rest of the people. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on Orange is the New Black Season 6. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews.
Remember all their faces, remember all their voices, everything is different the second time.